Hey guys, so today I wanted to look at my favorite shield for the Heavy Assault, the Adrenaline Shield. For those of you who may not be familiar with Heavy Assault, they have access to three different types of overshields. The first basic one is the NMG or Nanite Mesh Generator Shield. This shield can be activated to absorb a set amount of incoming damage. While active, it drains energy fairly quickly, and upgrading the shield will decrease the time it takes to recharge. This shield is a good basic shield and fairly cheap to upgrade. The next shield is the Resist Shield. Instead of absorbing incoming damage, it mitigates all incoming damage by 45%. The advantage of this shield is that it has a much longer uptime and a relatively cheap cost to cert. Combined with the Advanced Shield Capacitor Soup slot, this shield can give players more uptime in combat than nearly anything else. It's currently a bit underused, but it has a definite advantage and its own unique feel. The final shield, and the one I'd like to talk about, is the Adrenaline Shield. Damage absorption wise, it functions the exact same as the NMG shield in that while active, it absorbs all incoming damage. However, how it recharges is where the difference occurs. At all ranks, Adrenaline Shield recharges at the same rate as the default NMG. However, for each rank of Adrenaline Shield, killing an enemy will restore an extra 5% shield health. At max rank, this means that killing an enemy will restore 20% of your overshield, allowing you to absorb approximately one extra bullet per kill.
Weird.
On the flip side, the slower recharge rate means that if you're taking damage without killing people, you're punished slightly more than you would be with another shield. Adrenaline Shield basically requires at least the third rank to be worth it, and your goal should be to max it out fairly quickly if you're using it. As the most expensive shield, it will cost 2,250 certs to completely max out. For the average player, this isn't going to ever be worth it, and they'll get more utility out of the regular shield, which costs only 831, or Resist, which costs 1,000, and both of which have very good utility even in the first couple of ranks. However, my biggest problem with Adrenaline Shield is simply that it doesn't really feel any different to use than NMG. What it boils down to is that if certs aren't an issue, it's true that Adrenaline Shield is basically a straight upgrade over NMG. However, the average player will likely not notice an appreciable difference between the two, meaning that if certs are an issue, there's little to no reason for someone to invest the large amount required into making Adrenaline Shield usable. Now, what I'd like to see is Adrenaline Shield actually function in a fundamentally different way to make it feel more like a unique ability and give it more of a role. To do this, I've got three ideas. Each idea is going to be a progressively larger change to how the ability fundamentally works. So while the first idea will only be a slight modification on the current concept, the last idea is basically a complete revamp of the ability. Please do keep in mind that while I think the numbers I mentioned would be a good starting point, they're by no means required to be in that exact format for the final idea, and could be easily tweaked for the sake of balance. In addition, all the numbers listed would be the function of the shield at max rank. Progression would likely work in a similarly incremental fashion as it does now. The first idea is simply tweaking the numbers. Right now you get 20% shield health back for a kill and nothing for an assist. Close to a year ago they reduced the shield regen from 25 to 20% for a kill for unknown reasons. I'd like to see it increased back to 25%, and in addition get approximately 5% back for each kill assist. In exchange for this, they would decrease the passive regen rate to be slightly lower than it is now. This would place a little bit more of an emphasis on requiring players to chain together kills, but would also reward them for getting assists. On the flip side, if they lose their shield without securing a kill or continuing to pull in assists, they would be left at a disadvantage for a longer period of time, since the shield would now be taking longer to recharge passively. As you can tell, this concept really changed very little about how the ability actually works, and just tweaked a few numbers to give it a bit more personality. This would be a fairly easy change to make, but would likely make a large difference in how the ability feels. This second idea is going to be changing up how the shield functions a bit more. In terms of matching the description of Adrenaline, I feel that this one matches that feeling the most. The idea revolves around changing how the shield is regenerated and changing how the game determines how much you get back. When getting a kill, instead of receiving a flat chunk of shield health, the player will get boosted regeneration rate for a couple of seconds, equaling something like 33% shield health regained over that time. Getting an assist would perhaps give about 10% shield health over the same time period. A slight variation on this would be changing how much shield you get regened based on how much total health and shields the player has left. For example, If you kill someone and come out of the engagement with your health intact but your shield's down, you may only regen 15 to 20% overshield. However, if you come out of that same engagement with your shields down and only 100 health left, you may regen the full 33%. The same type of mechanic would be used for how quickly your shields passively recharge. At full health and shields, your overshield would recharge at a lower rate than stock NMG. However, if the player only had 100 health left, the overshield would recharge at a faster rate than stock NMG. This would put the shield into more of a role of a very aggressive playstyle that's tanking a lot of damage and give the player that feeling of getting an adrenaline rush type effect. It would also create an interesting risk versus reward in terms of letting your health stay at a lower level for better regen rates if you're very confident in your abilities. It should also be noted that incoming damage will not stop the kill or assist recharging mechanic like it would on a normal shield. This concept would take a lot more work to implement and would likely require a bit more work to balance. However, the general concept is probably my favorite as it really feels like something that could be called Adrenaline Shield. The final idea is a complete change in how the shield works, and it places the emphasis entirely on killing. This concept would involve boosting the shield regen from killing or getting assists substantially. However, it would drop the passive regen down to almost nothing or remove it altogether. If you kept some of the passive regen but made it something like twice as long to recharge as it currently does, the regen for kills could be around 35 to 40% for a kill and 10% for an assist. However, if you completely remove the passive regen, you could aim for 40 to 50% regen for a kill and 10 to 15% for an assist. Now, at first you may be thinking, well, this is going to turn the heavy assault into some indestructible infantry killer. However, remember that what this also means is that if someone wins an engagement, even after their shields and health is back up to full, they only have 50% shield strength going into the next engagement unless they secure another kill without taking any health damage. This would create an extremely unique playstyle that would reward short bursts of aggression and heavily punish players who take damage needlessly without getting a kill out of it. It would also create a risk versus reward for when you trigger the overshield. If you're running across an open area to get to cover, it might be better to let your regular shield and health tank the damage so that your overshield could be ready. This idea would require the most work to balance, although it would definitely provide the most unique feel to the ability. With that out of the way, those are my 3 concepts for creating a more unique adrenaline shield. I'd love to hear what you guys think of the ideas and whether I'm as crazy as my shrink regularly tells me I am. Thanks for watching, and let me know what you think below.